I'm here with Vince from Technicolor.
Hi, how are you doing, Kelly?
Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.
How are you doing the conference so far?
This is a fantastic conference. They've done a great job on this is a very short lead time to get this conference up and going, but it probably shows just how much interest there is in wearable technology.
There is a lot of interest in wearable technology, and what exactly are you doing at Technicolor?
Well, Technicolor, we're one of the sort of greatest innovators of media entertainment as a technology, serving Hollywood for over 100 years now, bringing colour and many other technologies over the last 100 years. So we've been looking at the next generations of technology. We started looking at 3D, for example, a while ago, and that era is past. But wearable tech now brings a lot of opportunities, mostly in the areas of obviously being new screens, whether it's watches or glasses or whatever that might bring a more immersive experience, or at least a different contextual experience to the content. But wearable tech also informs the experience. So can I know more about how you're enjoying content, help you to find better content because I know more about you. So there's lots of different ways that wearable tech is going to influence into the future how entertainment will be delivered.
Has anyone really gotten it right so far? Has anyone used wearable technology to really influence the media consumption in the right way so far?
Well, mostly now it's experimental. I don't think we've actually got any great success stories. I think we're already, if you consider a smartphone to be something that people carry everywhere, then smartphones and tablets have dramatically changed the way people are experiencing content. We've become much more engaged. There's more consumption of content occurring now than there's ever been in history, and it's continuing to grow, and people are continuing to pay, which just goes to show that in fact not only if you can make that content engaging on a small screen, then you can actually make it worthwhile financially as well.
So we're talking about small screens. We're talking about smartphones being the smallest screen that people are really consuming media right now. I've interviewed people earlier today that have been wearing the smart watches.
Yes.
Do you think that's a viable screen to consume movies and television on?
I don't think a 2-hour movie on a watch is probably going to start to stretch things a little bit. And even some of the early work on something like Google Glass or the Oculus type, more immersive headset type things, 2 hours is really stretching your ability to remain focused. It's not for everyone, right? So I think that's a bit of a challenge. But for snacking of content, 5-10 minute experiences, video, as you know, news and sport is breaking down into much smaller snatches of catching up and being entertained in brief moments, whether it's taking a Twitter feed and just seeing what's happening right now and grabbing moments of what's happening on. Engaging through Twitter or other forms of social media on your watch is actually going to be a pretty good way to be entertained.
So on a watch that's small seconds, a Vine, a Snapchat, and Instagram, that makes more sense. So where do you really see it going? Obviously, you're thinking about wearables in the next 5, 10, 15 years. If a watch is too small, what kind of wearables are we looking at to consume media with?
So I think the direction that we're going with wearables around the headsets will definitely find an audience, a big audience, because we do spend a lot of time in situations where we are either isolated or that we're happy to be wearing something that's more immersive. I don't think we'll necessarily want to watch a 2-hour movie on a Google Glass, which is allowing us to interact with the world and driving while watching a movie. So I think that there's some limitations in those sort of environments. So I think that path will find its way. But I think actually helping inform the way the story is told from the way that user is experiencing that story, or allowing the creative. And remember, it's all about stories. So if you're thinking about something that's more than a 20-minute experience, there's a story, there's a thread, and how the story unfolds and how the creative delivers that story can be informed by wearable tech. And I think we'll see a lot more of that. So if you go to our booth and you see some of the demonstrations we're showing on how we measure the reaction to the content, how people are engaging with it, the demographics and the age and sex, all those things influence. It's all very, very individual. And if the storyteller is able to really tap into that understanding of how people are experiencing the content, it can be more powerful storytelling.
So give me an example about how that kind of feedback would work.
Well, in a very simple thing, advertising is a great example, where we know that if you look at the experience of the content, you can see where the deepest engagement into the content occurs, and that creates the greatest opportunity for advertising placement. Because think of it in that very simplistic engineering sense, But even if I understand the emotional reaction profile, the DNA profile of that piece of content, Die Hard versus Beverly Hills Cop, in theory, very similar action profile definitions, but the engagement level throughout the content is quite different. And so if you can imagine when you rate a movie today, you'll say 4 stars out of 5, thumbs up, thumbs down, very coarse granularity to try and describe whether it was good or not. If I understand the typical engagement profile for someone like me to that piece of content, I'm going to be able to get a better feeling for whether I'm going to like that content or not.
So you can really drive content recommendation through this integration of wearables with media.
That's exactly, and that's what I mean. I think it's going to help people discover content better, help us design content to really engage people better, but also help people find the content that they know they're going to like.
Interesting. So we're talking about content and media and wearables. On the flip side, there has been a lot of sci-fi that has projected what wearables would look like. You know, lots of movies, you could probably name dozens yourself. Has there been any movies recently that have kind of gotten wearables right, or projected wearables where they either are now or where they probably will be going in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a great question, because so much of what informs our imagination comes from entertainment. That's a fair question. I think most of the watch stuff is probably pretty accurate. You know, much more interactive experience. Instead of carrying around a device that's a phone, I think the idea of, and that's again probably a little bit referring to itself. I mean, whether it's Dick Tracy or whatever, I'm sure we've been informed a little bit by that in our ancient history. You know, I hate to bring Star Trek up again, but it ended up, you know, the holodeck, and just simply knowing that experience. If you go back to that, having a projection system that is a greater granularity or greater resolution than the human eye, and it covers this whole room. This room could then, I could not tell the difference between reality and what is real, what is actually being projected. And then if the wearable tech that I've got on can actually help me immerse myself in that experience, so that everything I'm doing is directly being translated back into what happens in that experience, then that's not that's not that far away. You know, whereas maybe when it was first thought of in Star Trek: The Next Generation, maybe that's less than 10 years away.
Interesting. So you're at a wearables conference. You're surrounded by people that you might be working with in the future. What wearables excite you most?
I think definitely the Google Glass, but not so much this iteration. I'm sure that it's going to go down through. I think that the fact that I can immerse myself, find out more about something that relates to, say, sporting event news, and it's something that I can do and still have some chance of engaging. You know, the thought of being totally locked off from everything is very challenging. Whereas Google Glass does give us a lot of opportunity to engage. As I said, still early. I think there's a lot of challenges with that piece of technology, but it's pretty exciting.
So what's your favorite part of Glazed so far?
I actually think the corridor chat and the presentations have been fantastic. I was quite impressed with Yobi Benjamin's little startup announcement today with what he's doing. And so I think, I really full credit to the organisers. They've done a great job bringing this together very quickly.
Yeah, Reg and team they've done a great job.
Exactly.
Well, great. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for the time.